The media are growing accustomed to Donald Trump attacking Bill Clinton over his past sex scandals, but this week he ratcheted things up in a way that many pundits found troubling.
I think it was today on the internet you put up some stuff about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. It's kind of tawdry stuff, and I'm not sure that this is a good thing to do that.
You're talking about what I'm doing? Well, I'm only responding to what they do. They've been nasty. She's been very nasty. And I said, I'd like it to be on policy, Bill.
What was particularly stunning was Trump's discussion in response to questions from the Washington Post about the 1993 death of Vince Foster. 5 investigations have confirmed that the one-time White House aide and Hillary Clinton confidant had killed himself, despite conspiracy theories involving foul play that have persisted for more than 2 decades.
Vince Foster's sister has called your comments to the Washington Post about cruel, irresponsible, and wrong.
Well, a question was asked about Vince Foster, and it was asked of me. What do you think of Vince Foster? I really know nothing about the Vince Foster situation. Haven't known anything about it. A lot of people are very skeptical as to what happened and how he died.
Vince Foster's sister today broke her silence since her brother's suicide decades ago, saying that what Donald Trump has said about Vince Foster was wrong, irresponsible, and cruel. He thinks is not something that should really be part of the campaign.
Right, conspiracy theories that he imbibed from Alex Jones or wherever it is that he gets his ideas.
Mr. Trump has repeated an outrageous and long ago debunked falsehood about former Deputy White House counsel Vince Foster, a friend of Bill and Hillary Clinton's until his tragic suicide.
Pretty tough stuff. Joining us now to analyze the campaign coverage, Lisa Booth, a Republican strategist and contributor to the Washington Examiner. Susan Faricio, chief congressional correspondent for the Washington Examiner, and Penny Lee, a Democratic strategist and commentator. Lisa Booth, Vince Foster's death ruled a suicide by no less than Special Prosecutor Ken Starr. Does Trump deserve this media criticism for bringing this up?
Well, he does, but I think there's an important distinction to make between Donald Trump talking about Bill Clinton's infidelities, which is something that the Wall Street Journal editorial board not too long ago criticized for Hillary Clinton's role in as well, of the Clintons' war on women, which was what that editorial was titled, to him pushing and peddling sort of this narrative about Vince Foster, which drew criticism from his sister in the Washington Post. But this is kind of part of Donald Trump's whole thing where, no press is bad press. All press is good publicity. And part of the reason why he's been able to garner, at least in the primary, $2 billion of free media. Well,
Trump would say he was not pushing and peddling it, but he puts it out there. And here's an article in the New York Times. Susan Faricio, in the old days, Republicans would, quote, secretly place damaging information with friendly media like the Drudge Report and Fox News and with radio hosts like Rush Limbaugh. But now Trump, says the Times, with his outrageous style, doesn't need the middleman.
Yeah, he's changed the rules. And he can come out and say this stuff, and it's working because everybody is talking about it. Everybody's suddenly talking about a 1993 death of Vince Foster. Who thought that that would become part of the campaign dialogue? So he's actually making progress in trying to ruin Hillary Clinton's effort to win the women's vote because he's bringing up all these past things that make her look less attractive to female voters. That's an important strategy for him because his biggest weakness is female voters.
Well, it's also led to some broader pieces about Donald Trump and conspiracies. Here's NBC correspondent Hallie Jackson the other day. We got that?
When Ted Cruz was still in the race, Trump speculated about a tabloid rumor linking Cruz's father to JFK's assassination.
And I watched in Jersey City, New Jersey, where thousands and thousands of people were cheering as that building was coming down.
So NBC basically called Trump a conspiracy theorist. Fair or unfair?
I think it's fair. I mean, look, he goes out there oftentimes and peddles these things. I mean, the whole fact...
Or says that people have raised questions about
and he
it.
talks about it, and so the press covers it as quite, quote-unquote, a process story, that they're not really covering the actual conspiracy. They're only covering it as a process story, that he said this in a forum, and so therefore we must cover it. That is wrong. I mean, it was interesting to watch CNN just this week. You had Jake Tapper push back hard on the Vince Foster, saying it was, after 5 investigations that as you alluded to, was ruled a suicide. And then if you watch hour by hour by hour on CNN, they went back and back and back to quote-unquote, these comments now that Trump was only quoting somebody else. If this is a conspiracy that we all know is false, stop the coverage.
That reinforces your point, Lisa, which is in the process of even knocking it down, of even criticizing Donald Trump, and media criticism, as we know, probably helps him. The press acts as an echo chamber and gives this more attention.
Right, and Donald Trump is the king at driving headlines, and this is what he does it in such a genius way, too, because I don't actually think he believes this stuff. What he does, he puts it out there in a way that he can eventually walk back and say, well, I was asked this question. There was an article about it in the National Enquirer, or whatever it is, and he does it in a way where his hands are off it, but he puts it out there, he drives headlines, he consumes the media, and there's this vacuum for reporters trying to fill what to report on, and he puts these things out there, and it's just driving the headlines.
Oh, I wasn't serious about debating Bernie Sanders.
Exactly.
That was just for fun. So I have another soundbite, Susan Frischio, and this one has to do with an interview that he gave in the 90s when he was a little more sympathetic to Bill Clinton when we were dealing in the days of Paula Jones and Monica Lewinsky and all the sex-related scandals. Take a quick look.
Bill Clinton, what's he need to do?
Well, I don't know. It's so embarrassing, and you really have to say, where does it stop? Paula Jones is a loser, but the fact is that she may be responsible for bringing down a president indirectly.
1998. Does it matter in 2016 that Trump had at least a different emphasis about Bill Clinton back then?
Trump has come across as someone who people aren't sure how conservative he is. He's got a Democratic past, but nobody seems to care because, frankly, I think he is really a post-political candidate, and that's part of his popularity. That's part of the attraction. So the fact that he said these things in the past, I don't think make one bit of difference to the people who are supporting him and following him. The people who will wonder about it, though, who are watching these old clips, are the diehard conservatives who he currently really must court to win over for the 2016 election.
For the media covering this stuff, even though we say, you know, the election really should be about the economy and healthcare and ISIS, it's a lot sexier than deconstructing, for example, an energy plan that Trump did put out.
Sure. Well, you saw this weekend in the New York Times coverage of, there was an article about Mrs. Clinton, you know, and they actually are criticizing her, saying that she wasn't sexy or it wasn't entertainment enough, and so there's people that are now worried about
her sexy campaign style.
Sexy, exactly.
Okay.
You know,
I mean, and from the emails.
Thank you. It makes a distinction. Thank you for that. But you know, they specifically say, you know, she went in trying to criticize him in depth on an in-depth policy issue, and there was absolutely virtually no
We'll deal with
coverage.
that later in the program, but let me come to this. So Donald Trump officially clinches the nomination, that whole magic 1237 that we all obsessed on. He's now passed it according to a count by the AP. But he's starting to get some other criticism about how he deals with Republicans, Lisa. Morning Joe crowd basically said he was using slash and burn tactics, this particularly after he went out to Mexico, criticized the Republican governor, Susana Martinez. Mitt Romney walks like a penguin, all that. But the press loves a Republican civil war, does it not?
Oh, they eat. I mean, they absolutely love it. Because you look at the coverage on when it was thought of that there was going to be a contested convention with Republicans, and then you look at the coverage when there was a very real chance that the Democratic Party could potentially have a contested convention. And I mean, there's just no parallel there. I mean, the amount of coverage that was focused on a potential contested convention for Republicans is drastically different than the coverage on the Democratic civil war that's going on right now.
Maybe it doesn't matter whether Republican leaders like the reluctant Paul Ryan get behind Donald Trump. Maybe that's something that the media all obsess on because we deal with these people all the time. Maybe what matters is whether rank-and-file Republicans are closing ranks behind him so he can then complete the so-called pivot and go after some Democrats and independents.
I'm not really sure it matters who inside the Beltway gets behind Donald Trump, because so far it hasn't mattered one bit. If it really mattered, Howard, he would not be the nominee, because I think if anything...
So why does it get so much attention?
Because
every time Paul Ryan clears his throat, there's a story.
Because there are, you know, 150 reporters running around the Capitol reporting on it and obsessing over it. My frustration is when I go to the weekly press conference with Paul Ryan, I can't get in a question about what's happening with legislation, which is very important, and it's being dropped by reporters because every question is about when he's going to endorse Donald Trump. How much does it matter in the general election? Probably not a heck of a lot, since a lot of voters don't like the GOP establishment the way it's functioning right now. They like Trump because he's not part of the inside.
At one of these speeches this week where Trump went off on Romney and Susana Martinez and others, by the way, Susana Martinez said she's not going to be bullied by Donald Trump, so she responded rather sharply. He also went after Bill Kristol, who is the editor of the Weekly Standard, a longtime force in conservative movement and Republican politics, and who has been trying to draft somebody to mount a third-party conservative challenge. to Trump and Hillary Clinton. Here's what Trump had to say about Crystal.
His name is Bill Kristol. From day one, this poor guy, I watch him, but here's what I don't understand. Why do you keep putting a guy on television that's been proven to be wrong for so many years? He's been doing this for like 9 months. He can't find anybody. What a loser!
Is that a waste of Trump's time to go after some pundit who's gotten under his skin?
Oh, it is typical Donald Trump. I mean, anybody that gets in his way that says anything negative about him, that's his attack. I mean, he goes right over.
Very negative. He has every right to hit him, but he spent like 5 minutes at the speech.
And so much for the pivot. I mean, where's been the pivotal moment when he now, goes and uses words like senator and more auditory, more laudatory kind of words, and he's obviously not. Look, there is a real battle right now, and whether or not you are this is going to be a base election or this is going to be an expanded electorate. And so I think what Donald Trump is doing right now is very shrewd and very smart, and that is to go back and to assure the Republican base the impact of this race.
Well, he loves beating up on the press. We know that. We're a very fat target. Let me get a break. Let us know what you think. Email us, media.